Apostle Buddy Crum here with a word of encouragement. And the word of encouragement is I want to talk to you about God's presence, God's process, and God's provision. That all of those are provided by the Lord Himself. A verse that we all are aware of in Romans 8. In Romans 8 is a full disclosure in 7 and 8 of Paul of disclosing the fact that he, without grace, he could not complete what it is that God had assigned to him. But the verse that I'm going to quote is, you're familiar, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to these who are called according to His purpose. Now, we all want to be in God's purpose, and we want to be called. Many are called, few are chosen, but we know that when we get aligned with the purpose, and I've been preaching on the importance of purpose, the reason why, then those things can work together for our good. But it's interesting that there's a process to get to that place where all of these things are working for your benefit. And it says we know. The word know there doesn't mean head knowledge. The word know there means I have experienced it, tried it, and I know that God will take care of this situation. We have to know it empirically, not just intellectually. And so he says, I know that all things work together. But it goes on in that it says a little further down as part of this process in the next verse, which is God's process, he said, for whom he foreknew, he also predestined and to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. And those he's predestined, and we are predestined, he also called, and he called that he also justified, and whom he justified, he also glorified. Now, what a process that is. And that's why it says, when we go back up here, who are the called, that are called according to his purpose. So when you go for the process, it's to get you ready that all things work together for those who love the Lord and called according to his process. And then the results is, he goes on to say that if God is for us, who can be against us in the same chapter? So we see that going through this time, we're being processed, if you will. We've been justified. We've been made ready. We're being matured. We're being made stronger. So that a test is when you get to prove that you are called. And when you're called, all those things work together because you're aligned with the purposes of God. And if God is for us, who can be against us? So I want to encourage you today, quote that scripture. Nothing is more encouraging than to look at the scripture and remember that it was for our purpose that the scripture was written. It wasn't written to us, but it was written for us. This was written to the church in Rome. But it says, and we know, we've experienced, we've tried it, that all things work together for the good to those who love God. You love God, I love God. And we know that all things are working together for our good. And when our good is always to align with God's purpose. That's why it says, delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. The desire of our heart should be to do what it is that God's called us to do. So I encourage you today, go to the scripture, remember the scripture, but remember that God's doing a work in you. And you don't want to waste it. You want it to count for the kingdom. Let's learn what we need to learn going through this time. Let's mature in it. Let's become the saints that know Him. We've learned, we've been through it, we've been victorious. And because we are having it work for His purpose and our good. God bless you. Hope to see you soon.